Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the July monthly meeting of PMI Canberra. Can I first start tonight by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on today, the Ngunnawal people, and pay respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. I also wish to extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who may be here tonight. Well, very excited tonight because it feels like it's AI season. I'm very excited as a regular AI user, probably a little bit too much, and don't look at my LinkedIn profile too closely. Tonight, we'll be hearing from Raj Jonnalagedda. Raj has over 2 decades of experience as an IT software professional. Raj is a versatile and accomplished business analyst, solution architect, and a delivery lead. Based out of Canberra, Raj specializes in delivering complex Microsoft Azure, Dynamics 365, Power Platform, and M365 Copilot-based solutions for Australian government clients. For the past few years, Raj has been leading projects that enable AI tools and strategies for Australian government clients. Raj has presented at prominent global conferences, industry associations, and various communities of practice. Raj champions the practical application of AI in business analysis through his Hey BA series on LinkedIn, providing valuable insights and actionable strategies for business analysts and professionals. I forgot to introduce myself. I do this every time. My name is Gary. I'm the events director of PMI Canberra. I'm also the professional development director. An absolute pleasure to have you tonight. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Raj.
Thank you. Disappointment. I say this word. Disappointment is the word that comes to my mind when I think of AI. I always say this. I'm disappointed that AI was not available to me earlier. When I was in school, at the university, and especially in the early days of my career. I think back to those moments when I was struggling to keep up, when I needed to adapt quickly, learn faster, or even solve problems more efficiently. Imagine if only AI had been around then, how much more I could have achieved. But after all that complaining, disappointment, we are the ones who have access to this incredible technology right now. And we can harness its potential to transform our work, our productivity, and ultimately our success. And that's what today's talk is all about. How I am AI enabled and how AI is my assistant, helping me as a business analyst and a project manager perform better, work smarter, and make an impact faster. And I want to show you how AI can do the same for all of us. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. I'm Raj Jonnalagedda. I lead the BA community of practice at Analysts. I'm also a project manager on a Copilot project. And I play a Scrum Master role on an AI strategy team. At my core, I'm a BA enabled by the power of AI. I'd say responsible AI. And what does that mean? Every day, I have the opportunity to integrate AI into my work. But it's not just about access to AI tools. I'm trained to use AI responsibly and effectively, understand the policies and principles behind safe and ethical use of AI, which ensures that I work within the boundaries of enterprise compliance, enterprise data protection, and security compliance. I'm aware of the tools and apps I use. I'm always mindful of the data that I'm handling. And I'm very, very careful about safeguarding the trust my stakeholders place in me. And it's not just about automation. It's not about agents or agentic AI or prompting or anything. It's about continuous learning or evolving. I've spent time investing in learning techniques like prompt engineering. I'll come to one of the scenarios where I've done a PMI prompt engineering course. And how to apply these prompting techniques for complex business use cases. So in my AI strategy role, and as a co-pilot project manager, every day I solve problems for my stakeholders using AI. And with every challenge, I get better. So I'm not just AI-enabled once, but every single day as I continue to adapt and grow. So the question is, may I ask before we get into the scenarios, how many of us use AI here at work? Good. Everyone?
You use AI every time you Google something.
Yeah. That's right. And so we are already on the journey of using AI, journey of embracing AI. Right? So I called this out last year in one of my talks at Sydney. Rise and shine, it's AI time, the future is now. I said it 6 months ago. Apparently, the word now has got a very short shelf life. But believe me when I say it's like having a genie 24/7. If you have learned to use it the right way, if you've got the right prompts, and if you've got the right context, it's like having a genie 24/7. It turns my data crunching into a breeze, even before I can say the word spreadsheet. AI summarizes my documents, it drafts my content, saves me time, removes the writer's block, and makes my learning feel like I'm leveling up in a video game. So I'm trying to relate visually to each of these blocks there. By the way, all these images are AI generated. Provide context, and providing the right context, it can give you the right image. And I try to make those avatars look like me. So that was the synopsis for my talk last year in Sydney. And I live this experience every day, almost every day. So for today's talk, I'll take you through a typical day in my life. Our topic today is a day in the life of an AI-enabled business analyst. So usually that's what my day looks like. Starts with the stand-up, goes into refinement sessions, sprint planning, workshops, team meetings, and I reserve some time for myself for learning, and the day wraps up with a reflection. Sometimes it doesn't consciously happen, the reflection, but when I'm driving back or come back home or sit at the TV, I'm reflecting on the day. Each of these moments represent an opportunity for me to use AI to enhance my work. So for today's talk, I'll take you through these scenarios using M365 Copilot. Is everyone here familiar with M365 Copilot? Yeah. Perfect. And I could have done live demos, but you can't rely on network speeds and consistency with AI responses. We all know how AI behaves when you want it to behave. So I'll do a demo using screenshot by screenshot. That way we can go step by step. Right? And we understand the prompts. It's going to be hands-on, not as hands-on as you're going to type the prompt. But I'll show you these prompts for each of these events in the day. Right? And we'll have Q&A session at the end. So if you have got any questions, we can discuss that at the end of the session. By the end of this talk, you'll understand how AI can be truly your personal assistant. Right? And you'll take away prompts and prompting techniques for each of these events in the day. You'll have access to my heavy newsletters, where I discuss all the scenarios, prompts, outputs, screenshots, techniques. What should BAs do? What should PMs do? Responsible AI. What can you expect out of AI? How should you challenge AI? How can you verify whether the outputs are correct, explainable AI, right? How do you verify? So all these tips and tricks, you'll have access to all my newsletters. You'll have access to me. You can ping me on LinkedIn, direct message me, and for tips and tricks on M365 Copilot. And to constantly understand how M365 Copilot behaves, I also compare it with Gemini, ChatGPT. I verify my scenarios across these tools, so ping me literally on anything under AI. Whatever I know, I'll share. Right? And so if any of these insights today resonate with you, please give me a thumbs up or a nod. And it will boost my confidence and our confidence. We are all in it together. So without any further ado, let's just jump in. I'll start with a question. How many of us are not in a stand-up? Not in stand-up. Good. The reason I ask is I've got a prompt and a technique even if you're not in stand-up. So this scenario talks about a stand-up prompt. But at the end of the scenario, I'll talk about how can you use it even if you're not in stand-up. Right? Okay. Let's start with the first thing in the morning. Our daily stand-up starts at 9. If you all know how to launch M365 Copilot in Teams, it's also called M365 Copilot Chat. I switch to work mode and start typing in a new prompt. Start by asking Copilot, get me ready for the day by reviewing my upcoming meetings and relevant Teams chats from the day before. Now I say work mode and web mode. That's a good question. We can come back to that if you want to discuss that at the end. Now I ask Copilot to review relevant Teams chats and gather additional context and information. I ask Copilot to identify key priorities and goals for the day. List any issues or blockers discussed with the team. I want it to filter out my focus time. I don't want it to list all my focus times. And the present results in a table format. I want it to present in columns, date, task details, priorities, issues, and blockers. And I hit the send button for Copilot to process my request. It's my prompt. But what happens in the background? Copilot starts to access my work-related chat, emails, and all that securely, safely, within the enterprise compliance boundaries by what's called a Microsoft Graph. Gets a bit technical beyond that, but we can discuss that later if you're interested. Once it has your results, you come back, start presenting these details in a table format. Date, task details, key priorities, issues, blockers. I ask Copilot to list my task in bullet form so that I can quickly read and go into a stand-up. Sometimes I just hurry into a stand-up. Earlier, without AI, it used to take about 10 minutes. I need to sift through my emails, look at individual chats. What did I say to this developer, that developer? Right. But now, 2 to 3 minutes, I'm ready. I give it a quick prompt. I can even schedule this prompt. It's there. Or I can access it from prompt history. Run the prompt. I have the table. I have the task details. And I'm prepared. I go ahead. Works much better for me. So if you are not in a stand-up, you can still run this prompt to understand what's coming up in the day. You don't have to be in stand-up to run this. And if you're a project manager, you can run this prompt to generate a weekly status report. Don't run it for the day, run it for the week. Ask for issues, blockers, dependencies, constraints, and then ask it to generate a table, save it to Word, open it in Pages. We can discuss a lot of features around that once you start extending that scenario. Good. That's the QR code to stand up from, but don't bother scanning the codes. They are all in the slides that I'll share with you later on. And there is a QR code at this last slide, in the last slide as well. You can scan that and you'll have access to all the AVA newsletters, articles. PM scenarios, do's and don'ts. Don't take AI's output as final. Always review. Responsible AI. Remember that we'll come back to those points, but always review. If it doesn't have context, it will hallucinate. It'll tell you it's like a wandering teenager. You need to give it context, then it'll start behaving like a scholar. So give it the context, give it the references, and then it'll start providing value information. Right? So we'll come back to that. Next up, refinement, 9:30. After stand-up, it's time to dive into user story refinement. What's the goal of a typical refinement? Let me ask the question, how many of us participate in refinement sessions? Cool. Okay, I'll define what's refinement, but we'll probably extend it to a general scenario. We're not going to refinement. But then we can discuss how we can extend it to a PM scenario or a typical BA scenario. But this is what BAs do. They go into refinement sessions usually. The goal of a refinement is to understand a clear set of user stories, okay, based on requirements. And then get an agreement, general agreement with your stakeholders or at least your team members on, okay, expanding the user story makes sense out of it. You also go into definition of done, definition of ready, all this, along with your product owners. And then you define acceptance criteria. You know, what for this to be passed, what's the criteria? And then at one point, you'll have to get team consensus around it to be able to progress into what's called a sprint plan, which is my next event. Right? So we'll focus on refinement, but we'll also talk about how it can be extended to a PM scenario. We'll come to that. So what I'm trying to do here is to ask Copilot to generate a set of requirements. Right? Now, I could be a BA new to a domain, or I'm a BA new to this project. Replace the word BA with a PM. I'm a PM new to the project. All my stakeholders are new. I'm given a set of specifications. Given a set of links for websites, SharePoint sites. What do? I've got limited time. Need to speed up, ramp up, get ready for my first kickoff. Right? So think of the extensions of the scenario as to understand and make sense out of your documentation. Right? So in this scenario, we're going to ask Copilot to generate requirements. But in this process, we learn about prompting techniques as well. If you notice, I'm opening Copilot in Word, not Teams now. So there are different ways of stitching what I call human workflows. Your workflows are going to change the moment you start using AI. So there are certain actions you start in Teams. There are certain actions you start in Word. I'll tell you in a minute why you start in Word here. Before I jump into the prompt, this prompting technique is called create prompting technique. Now, this is a way to ask AI, ask enough information, so that enough context, so that it can actually provide you valuable information. Output that match your criteria. Right? So C stands for character, R for request, E for examples, A for adjustments, T for types of output, E for evaluation. Now, I learned this technique in a PMI prompt engineering course last year and a half back. Example. You're asking AI to assume the persona of a certified BA who is John Smith. Request is to create a set of high-level requirements for a web-based CRM portal. Examples, I provide a couple of examples so that AI understands the context. I'm calling it AI because it could be any AI you can use. This is tool agnostic, AI tool agnostic. The technique itself is tool agnostic because as a BA, could use typically any AI tool that you're authorized to use, again, responsible AI. So examples, adjustments, I'm telling AI that the cloud-based SaaS application, I need 30 requirements, out of which 5 need to be security and privacy related. And types of outputs, I want requirements that are based on SMART principles, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. And I want the results in a table format with columns, requirement ID, requirement description, type, owner, details, priorities, everything. And then I can tell it to use a certain tone and style I wanted to keep a professional tone so that I can use this outputs for business and technical discussion. Right? You with me so far? That's the complete prompt, but I will not go into details. Paste the prompt there. Send it. Send the prompt. That's the reason why I started this in Word. Because it starts to draft things. I can actually start using it as a draft after a thorough review. So it gives me certain overviews based on what the context that I gave it. And then it starts to list my requirements. Good. And then I use those requirements. I save the document. And I open Copilot with another Word document. And now my aim is to generate user stories out of those requirements. Okay. So we'll not extend this example too much, but user stories out of requirements, acceptance criteria, the standard given when then format, it's also called the Gherkin format. The user story format, the standard, as a user, I want to do so and so tasks so that I achieve so and so benefit. It's maintaining the format for user stories. Can you think of a PM scenario? You can suggest this approach to your BAs. Definitely. That's the starting point. But as a PM, if I have a specification, I can understand scope. I can understand overall requirement context.
Risks.
Risks. Perfect. Issues, dependencies. I can give it a specification and say, tell me the list of technical systems this is dependent on. Does this document actually list stakeholders who own the systems? Build a stakeholder map out of this document. Right? There's no limit to what you can ask. Provide enough context to get a value output. If you don't provide context, it will hallucinate. PM scenarios, do's and don'ts. Always review AI-generated outputs for accuracy. May contain mistakes. Every tool writes in footnote, in small fonts. AI can make mistakes. Always check outputs for accuracy, bias, right? And check for context. The only way to actually double check your context, if the outputs are accurate, is to go and review with your stakeholders. Or we review with your team even before you share with your wider audience. Always review with your team. Go back, review, add the context if you want. If the context is too much, add it to, give it to AI, improve your outputs. Once you're feeling comfortable, all your team members are saying good, then go distribute it to wider audience. Again, the QR code, don't bother about it. Next up is sprint planning. 11 o'clock. Coffee break sometime.
Sometimes.
Yeah. In AI, you get more coffee breaks. Yeah. So next up, sprint planning. What are we trying to do with those user stories is to get some idea about estimates and complexity. The idea is to identify the right set of sprints for the current sprint, right set of stories for the current sprint, so I can lock it in. Right? That's what you do in sprint planning. You go in confidently. You say, these are the effort estimates on each of these. These are the t-shirt sizes, I call it. This is the complexity. And then the questions come. Oh no, that cannot be the effort. Right? How many of us were in a sprint plan? Good. So that's what usually happens. Debates, arguments. And we never reach consensus in one. We reach it in one sprint plan. We are very lucky. Right? But what I'm suggesting here is to take AI's assistance to better prepare for a sprint plan. Understand your efforts and complexity even beforehand. Provide AI the context of your team capacities, your team skills, your team constraints, and ask AI to set an effort estimate in terms of t-shirt sizes, provided this task typically takes 1 day, this task takes 3 days, this task takes 1 week, 5 days. So my t-shirt sizes are small, 1 day, medium, 3 days. right? Large is 5 days. My team doesn't understand authentication that really well. That's a constraint, right? So based on constraint, you can think complexity. One way to think of, not always, right? So provide these constraints. I have only 2 developers, right? So say all that. Provide enough context. Again, we are launching Copilot in Word. Providing reference of the previously generated user stories, right? And then hit the send button. AI starts to play back your assumptions, and then starts to list your t-shirt sizes, complexity, and effort. To test the AI output, I've asked it, give me the complexity reason why you think this is low or high. I need to test AI outputs as well. I can't blindly go with it. Always challenge AI outputs. That's a good question as well. So we can discuss that at the end. How do we challenge AI's outputs? Complexity t-shirt size. See the reasoning for the first one. Requires user authentication and secure storage of personal data, which the team has no experience with. That's why I called it large. That's why I call it high complexity. Good. And then this is one step further. I wanted to estimate my stories. Tell me number of days. And I wanted to put my backlog together and say, put them in a sequence so that they're in bunches of 25 story points each, because that's my team velocity. And while you're doing it, put only the dependent stories together. Is that not what we do? Right? And when we get that assistance, why not take it? Right? So I put in that prompt. I tell it all the context. I say, identify dependent user stories and club them into sprints with combined story points of 25. I released this edition of my ABA newsletter yesterday. AI for smarter refinement and sprint planning. Every prompt and every output screenshot is in that article. Right? And we have also dealt with busting the myths about splitting user stories. Why should I even use AI for user stories? Is that not a core competency of a BA? So we discussed those kind of issues as well, or concepts. So make sure you refer to that article. But AI starts to replay, prioritize user stories. It puts everything in a sequence. I can ask why you thought of that sequence, and it should tell me. Otherwise, I should provide more context. Then you see the user stories are clubbed into 25 story points, bunches of 25 stories. Now, what I do is to discuss this with my team in a refinement, and then go into a sprint planning session with more confidence. This was not available earlier. I was always walking into a sprint planning session with some amount of uncertainty in my head. I didn't know the constraint. I didn't know dependencies. Every sprint backlog had a different technical challenge altogether. How do I even predict that? So this is what you do to enable product owners as well. That's what we do as PAs. That's what we do as PMs. That's what we do as Scrum Masters. We enable the team to understand this complexity better. Right? So extend this for PM. I've used it to put together a project plan. I knew only little context, but I knew the start and end dates. I knew constraints. I knew the kind of business rules that I'm hearing. Right? I spoke with my team, and I got a little bit more information. So I start to chat with AI. Copilot, right? Because it has context of my chats and emails in a secure environment within the compliance boundaries. Right? So do that and continue the conversation. Don't ever use a big bang approach to prompting. Continue the conversation until you have a good draft where you can start a conversation with your team. Right? Okay. Do's and don'ts, PM scenarios, always review AI generated outputs. Wherever you didn't catch your context, it would have hallucinated, would have assumed something and given you. And then it would be embarrassing if you are sitting in a meeting and you're calling out something that it was never in the spec. It's never in the context of your project. So always review before you take this into even an internal team discussion. Right? Good. Workshop facilitations. I'd say PMs will benefit the maximum out of it. Maximum. As BA, I definitely have benefited out of it. But as a PM, I'm currently the PM, so I benefit a lot out of it as well. So Copilot during and after meeting, tracking attendees, actions, notes, summaries, and whatever you want to send after a meeting, minutes. You can't remember everything while you're discussing. So it acts like your second brain. So you can turn on meeting recording and transcription in Copilot and actually let it focus on your discussion while you focus on the issues. That is what I did. My colleague and I were in this discussion. Recording and transcription was turned on, and for about in a 30-minute meeting for 25 minutes, we were discussing the details of the upcoming workshop, and then I prompt Copilot in the sidecar, give me a recap of the meeting so far, and starts to recap. And then I ask any due dates that were discussed. Yes, it lists the due dates. Who will be attending the workshop? Because my colleague James called out some names, I gave some names. I don't remember what James said. So I had to list all those names who will be attending the workshop. Copilot is doing it for you while you're discussing this. And I asked what specific task for me and James. I remember my task. Copilot remembers James' task for me. Right? Who will be attending the workshop? Okay. So during the meeting, and the question that we can discuss in the Q&A session is what are the features during and after the meeting or meeting only. Very interesting aspect, especially for project managers, how you can control Copilot behavior during and after the meeting. PM scenarios, very clear why PM should use it. Do's and don'ts. What's something we can think of?
My favorite thing is to ask for like sentiments in the meeting and any relationship like fissures, because it's always quite funny. It's just very blunt. It's like Tim thought, Joe's idea was stupid. You're like, oh, that was very aggressive.
Mine is that the way I pronounce the word was that Danny was recorded as Daddy.
Oh.
Daddy's going to take over that. Yeah. Daddy's got that piece of work for me. Daddy's going to message everyone.
Yeah. So what do we do? It's all during the review that we can catch all this, right? And don't ever send a meeting, AI-generated meeting notes directly. Right? I've seen some patterns where there's a lot of detail. We need to cut it down. Sometimes most preferable formats are just straight bullet points. Name, action, name, action. If you just call out a paragraph, nobody will read your minutes. Right?
Only the host can generate the content.
A host can start, organizer can start meeting recording and transcription. Yes. You can also set some meeting options when you are sending an invite, but it depends on what administrator has allowed you to do. And then most organizations just do during and after the meeting. That's the most helpful setting, but we'll come to the Q&A anyway. Team meeting. How is this even different from the workshop facilitation or the meeting scenario that we discussed? I separated these two events because I wanted to talk about Copilot features in Outlook, helping with drafting emails, scheduling emails, right? And building agendas out of emails and converting them to meeting invites. Have you tried that? Okay, some features are coming in new Outlook, or they're there in new Outlook. Some organizations have new Outlook. But the classic Outlook has only certain features, but it benefits me a lot. I keep using it often to the extent that it starts to worry me that I'm relying on it too much, but it's okay. I sometimes
Track all the threads and points. Yeah.
tracking is good, but we'll come to that. That's an interesting question as well. Tracking is good, but audit logging from monitoring or topic But the key features here, that's an email I received from one of my colleagues. There's a lot of detail, and I want to schedule a meeting based on the details in that meeting, in that invite, or in the email. I click the schedule with Copilot button, and it creates the agenda out of the email. Even finds meeting slots, and I can send out the email. But always review. It's actually reading your email details, so it has interpreted or not. Thoroughly review. Don't ever send it out without reviewing. Some images from the website. That's Copilot features during the meeting. We've already discussed this, so we'll not go into details. Or the action items, and that's after the meeting. You'll have access to attendees list, who has spoken when, AI generated notes, transcript, and you can ask questions in the sidecar. Open Copilot sidecar and ask questions. So if I join late, I usually jump into Copilot sidecar, ask questions. If I totally missed the meeting, I go to the recording, right? And then look for transcription, look for AI generated notes. There are ways in OneNote you can actually refer to a meeting and pull AI generated meeting notes into your OneNote. There are a number of ways you can do this, and it's all so well nicely knit and integrated into M365 Copilot. You'll have to explore it end to end. So I spoke about I call what's called an AI augmented end-to-end human workflow. So look at my first article in Heavy ACE. Talks about the top-down approach. Starts with requirements elicitation, prioritization, traceability. Then it goes into refinement, sprint planning. Then elaborate on requirements. Then you go into development, and then change management. Full end-to-end workflow. Yes.
Just how long does the system retain that for? Is it like a 30 days, or you got 2 days before it puts it in the bin?
What are we referring to?
So the notes from that meeting, which for argument's sake I didn't attend, but I would like to look at the notes. How long is that available on the system? Is it there until someone deletes it, or it expires after 30 days?
Okay, so if you're talking from organizations in our context in Canberra, FedGov, it goes back to the retention policy.
Okay.
So we need to archive for a certain number of years.
That's set by the system administrator.
Yes, but if it is an official document or sensitive or depending on the classification, we have a responsibility to lodge it into the official records management systems. Yeah. They have their own retention policies, right? And if you don't want it to be retained there, your records management team will tell you what you do with those files. Delete them or store it in trim or store it in SharePoint, put it in a folder with sensitivity labels and all that. So it depends on what scenario we are, but generally that Copilot can access up to 7 days of information and certain number of characters and all that. That's a lot of technical detail there. Yeah. But it's all within your what's called two boundaries. One is the inner one is called the tenant boundary, and the outer one is called the service boundary. Service boundary is the geographical boundary, and inner one is the tenant boundary, which is your organization boundary. So they are all securely within these boundaries. The time or duration of retention is depending on policy. Yeah, answer your question.
So once it's moved out of the Copilot sphere into the records management system, it then is in a different format and would need a different technique to access and retrieve it.
Okay. Yeah. So good question. Goes back into responsible AI. Always when you generate an output, don't just leave it there. By default, it's being saved to some SharePoint folder or OneDrive. Your first place where it copies to is your OneDrive. So OneDrive has got records management, your SharePoint rules and how to manage your OneDrive folders, clean them, those kind of rules as well. So yeah, there's a policy for where you store and for every place you store. Okay. That's the QR code for articles. And PM scenarios. Almost every email, I use the feature draft with Copilot. Quick tips. Even if you know some keywords in what you want to draft, put them in the Copilot window and it'll stitch it nicely for you. It'll even bring the context from the underlying email thread. But you need to be very thoroughly checking what it understood out of your email. Right? So sometimes might say it's by this person, it would have converted to from this person. Can be totally wrong. So always thoroughly review AI outputs. Now to one of my most favorite parts of the day. This is actually very interesting scenario. It helped me prepare for my TOGAF certification exam, and it's helping everyone wherever I demo this scenario. It's how I use AI for learning. Tell me after I finish the scenario if you're new to this, or if there's a light bulb moment, or if you've already seen this, if you've already done this. Right? I asked Copilot to quiz me with 40 multiple choice questions for my TOGAF certification exam. I asked it to point to the online resources that are available. So I switched Copilot to web mode, right? And I say each question should have 4 choices, 1 correct, 4 very close to the correct one. Make it as tricky as you can. Start a timer in the background. Then for each correct answer, just give me a quick explanation, but each wrong answer, thoroughly explain everything. Right? And I start. Starts to play back the references and see how it also reiterates. Each question will be multiple choice, 1 correct answer, close distractors to test your understanding. Immediate feedback with explanations and references to the official guide. Question 1, I got it correct. Quick explanation. Question 2, I got it incorrect. It goes into this deep dive mode, gives me some explanation, but it has to keep the quiz going as well. So more questions. At any point, I can ask, what's my score? And what are the areas of improvement that I need to focus on? Now it starts to list strengths and areas of improvement. At any point, I can ask it to run a short course for me. It's going into that deep dive mode again. And then it presents real-time scenarios, examples, so that I can understand this better. Then I can come back. If I'm doing a simulation test, I can always spend as much time as I want to go into that deep dive, understand, learn, and come back to my test. I don't mind about the time. Right? Was it helpful? Right. Did you try this with any other tools?
I've been trying this for attending interviews. When I attend interviews, I used to write that I'm attending interview for this position. Please prompt me with few questions and give me a related answer. So I used to fine tune it. And
perfect. I've tried this.
I'm disappointed it wasn't around for my PP.
Yes, it worked for my TOGAF. Works for most of my certification. In fact, the don'ts. Don't ever rely on this option as the only option. Right? Use it for your learning, but don't ever rely on this as the only option. I go for measure up tests. Go for actual exam simulation preps. Right? And you can always do one of that and come back to check whether this AI behavior is helping you. Then you increase your reliance on this method slowly.
can you repeat that? Can you save that as a executable file and then send it to your peer and say, hey, Brian, try this, see how smart you are?
Excellent. So we'll just save this for Q&A because I've got an idea. Through chat, you have to do this repeatedly, but there's the agentic AI approach. PM scenarios. Learn from the spec. What do you do with a 68-page PDF? Right? What do you do with a 1,000-page PDF? What do you do with 10 different SharePoint sites. Point them to that and keep learning. Run quizzes to yourself, right? Run team quizzes. Sorry, you had your hand.
No, I was just going to say, Hayden, I know you mentioned that you wanted it for your PMP. We've got some people studying for their PMP.
Yep.
In Infinity, there is now an option to
Oh,
test
don't
it
tell
on.
me
Yeah.
It'll save me a few hours. That's just resitting the exam.
Okay.
4 hours you'll be back.
Correct.
So as the day wraps up, I take a moment to reflect. What used to take hours now just take minutes. Have you ever suffered from what's called a blank page syndrome or a writer's block? I always had the writer's block when I'm starting on a new document. Even if you gave me the best template, I don't know, except for building the section headings, I don't know what to write. And then I'll then need an example, a sample. Even the sample won't make sense sometimes because it would have got stuck in the approval cycles. I don't know whether it's final or not. So when I start with AI, I get a really good starting point. Of course, I have to review, but I really get a good starting point. I need to provide context. Right? With responsible AI, I need to provide enough context. Now I start to think, there's no writer's block. Whether I'm drafting or crunching data, there's no writer's block. Crunching data. Can you think of building a sample Excel file with test data? Talk to me about writer's block. Right? It's easier to write a document than to generate sample data. Right? So no more writer's block, no more manual effort writing drafts. So I'm starting to think, it's not really here to replace me. It's not really here to replace what I do, but is it here to enhance what I do, allowing me to do bigger, more impactful work? Probably. And that's what I reflect. And as I think, I wrap up my day with AI by my side, helping me achieve more. So let's be clear. I'm the pilot and AI is my assistant. AI can give incredible tools and insights, but it's my creativity and my decision making that will drive my success. It's here to enhance what I do, not to replace human touch. That's what I think. And that's what I tell everyone wherever I go. Use it rightly, do the right thing. Responsible AI says, do the right thing with AI. So it can actually improve productivity, save time, can remove that writer's block. Right? So here's what I urge you to do. Whether you're a PM or a BA or in any role, if you're trying to use AI, this is what I urge you to do. Embrace AI as a partner in your work. Use AI responsibly. Understand the safe and ethical principles of AI. Use AI to save time on tedious tasks. Stay curious. Explore possibilities that AI offers. Cool. So if you want to know how I've done this scenario, the characters, scenes, I've used Microsoft Designer. Use ChatGPT as well for image generation. But the key is in the context. You provide context. You give facial features, and you give what I'm wearing, and then. But then the challenge is again, keep the consistency of the character for different scenarios. So that's a trick. So ping me, and I'll help you with these techniques for your presentation communication skills. That's also one area where it's slowly coming into assist us. It's not just productivity. It's actually enhanced my presentation and communication skills. 2 years back, I was presenting totally different. I'm disappointed that I was not available to me earlier. Okay, I look forward to continuing this conversation. Stay in touch. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Refer to my heavy articles. And let's keep chatting. Any questions?
Go back to that output for the quiz.
Yeah.
You said,
Yeah.
so in that example, you've created that and you've now got that product. or do you retain that for
Okay.
enterprise use?
Yeah. So since everything is in a single conversation, you can click on the edited pages and it'll quickly shift it to pages, copy it into pages, and you can actually keep a copy there. But that's not what you're asking. You want to reuse it, right? So in chat, Copilot chat, what you can do is in a conversation mode only. But if you want to repeat this, you want to put some automation in. You want to automate this process and you want to connect it so that it's actually. I believe the feature there is persistence of data, so that you can retrieve, right? And you have to keep versions because you don't do that once and stop. So I'm thinking agents. So there, create an agent option in Teams where you can start creating an agent, but you are limited with at some capacity when you start doing it that way. But there's a better way of doing things in Copilot Studio where you can stitch each of these steps. You can have generative AI capabilities where it can still do what it does as generative AI. I can go to web sources and verify your questions, come back with an answer, it can score you and all that. Scoring and timing and all could be just the framework of the agent itself. But the actual going back, verifying against the source and coming back, that can still be generative AI. So that I think that's an agent if you want to automate that. But just with conversation in chat mode, it remains in that manual.
So it probably works better in a multiple choice rather than preform text response sort of model. And I guess at a minimum, you could pass that record of what you produced to your training team to produce an internal product, whatever, with their training tool for exams or whatever.
Correct. Interesting you mentioned that. Even if you had text-based responses, imagine, this is what I did for survey responses. You do sentiment analysis. I had 10,000 records of text responses. So you could open that in Excel and ask Copilot, give me sentiment analysis on it. He'll come back to you with insights. X percent thought so, 5% thought so, because it can read and understand sentiment. So text-based responses also, but as long as you remain in that chat mode or conversation mode, you're doing manually. But I'm thinking agents when you want to automate. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Look, it's about confidentiality, right? So you're talking to a model somewhere in the cloud,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Microsoft's.
That's
I
right.
don't know where it is, right?
Right.
So for me, every time I submit a prompt, it's pretty much going out there, out of my control. So for example, if I use a particular, I don't know, a step, right? Which is confidential and it's classified and whatnot. So we are breaking potentially policies right here.
That's where the conversation starts, right? When you have the initial setup, but when you go best practice in terms of configuration, of starting with the LLM itself, it's a copy of the LLM for insecure environment for you, right? And then your data is not used for training. It won't, your Microsoft Graph data won't cross your tenant boundaries. Your organization data will not cross service boundaries. So your sensitive information is filtered based on your sensitivity labeling. The moment you label your document, your IT admins and your M365 admin center administrators can set policies where you block content based on sensitivity label that's on the document. So if you have all this configured correctly, it's nicely sitting there securely, and your users can safely use AI, safely use Copilot. So it's up to us, the project managers or the leaders who are actually setting up this, set it up safe to be used safely, ethically, and within the right parameters. So yes, that's where the conversation starts. And so that's where we get most of the questions, and we understand the configuration. So I come with a solution architecture background as well. I talk to IT admins. In fact, today I was talking to cyber or others. So yes, so all this is important, and we need to tick all those boxes as well. So we make a huge list of FAQs for people coming back asking this question. Where's my data? Where's my data going? I'm handling sensitive data. What do I do? So we need to train people as well We need to make them feel safe about use of AI tools as well. Did I answer that question? Yes and no.
Look, I'm still, but I'll probably need to see something in writing. Because for me, whatever you submit in the prompt goes somewhere. I don't know.
Of course, yes.
And
Because
if that prompt
but if you
contains
see
a
the
document,
yeah.
then it's okay. Thanks.
If I may, it's a brilliant topic, a lot of insights. Just to alleviate that, I'm a solution architect, and I feel like you're my clone.
Oh, you're not.
Just to alleviate that, leaving the fun side, because users could actually very well wrongly classify their email.
Okay.
To cover that, so I'm going to talk on the above the line information very quickly, very succinctly. So on the cloud level, they have already got the region sorted.
Okay.
From the data sovereignty point of view.
Okay.
And they are very stringent cloud security rules from the ASD, which is the prime responsibility of the cloud provider.
Mm-hmm.
If you are typically one of the big two or big threes, and the department.
Right.
All right. So I've been working very closely on the ASD blueprints, and recently DTA has released some template type guidelines where government departments and the Fed Gov abide by those regulations. Right. So I take gentleman's point. That's sitting behind.
My name is Boris.
Hi, Boris. So you raise a good point, because there's only a level of guardrails you can put on your prompts, and that's a fair point. That, to be honest, like I co-wrote the AI policy, and my cyber security, who is not there in the department anymore, he actually denied the AI tool to me. I'm writing the policy, right? But that's totally out of context. He said, but the point is that, there's so much education we need to have. But to answer the question, that's the responsibility of the department.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm. And also as the teams that we were running these projects, we make sure this is all in documentation. It's available to users in readable format, in understandable format, and we bring down the FAQs into simple language. Because the architecture diagrams can be very complex. Nobody can read an architecture document. So, but if we can explain clearly, this is where it's going, this is the system prompt. Somebody asked me, what's the system prompt? And I had to tell them, this is how your files are torn apart. Parts of it are taken. Imagine it's being sent, put it in an envelope, going somewhere, and somebody's writing back to you saying, this is the result. And we explain to them in simple terms. It's also a BA function as well.
Last question.
Okay. Is that me? Yeah, definitely. Raj, thank you. Very engaging and interesting presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to understand your views and your experience in using these AI prompts and over-reliance or skills degradation. What do you think and what do you see is happening in the industry?
Perfect. Industry, definitely. Feedback, that's what I'm getting. I've felt it myself, but I fight it. I deal with it, and I train myself. So, for example, today, I have the sidecar copilot screaming at me, use me, but I was writing risk statements. So I did those set of statements myself. So that's what you do to yourself. Don't over-rely on AI. There are things that you could do, quick statements, quick summarizations, quick drafting. Always have your first block, you write it. Because when you're writing it, you provided the context. Because you know that context really well. Context, tone and style. You want AI to keep your tone and style. Sometimes it comes back with it looks as though it's written by somebody else. I don't want it to do that. So tone and style, context. Right? Write your first paragraph. Then to polish it, use AI. So risk statement, dependencies, constraints, scoping, or even the top set of requirements. Quickly jot them down yourself. So that's how you train yourself in how to get out of over reliance on AI. And then whenever I'm deep into a prompt conversation, I pull myself out of the conversation and challenge AI. So look at my article where I wrote challenge my views. So there are two-way conversations, so two-way challenges. So challenge my views is first prompt. Embed it in your conversations with AI. Whenever it's saying, this is excellent, let me add that in. This is nice. Oh, that's great. It's cool you're thinking about it. So let me add that. Did you see that behavior? Stop that and say, challenge my views. Type in this prompt. And it will flip. It'll flip and now it will say, okay, now I understand. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? It comes with scenarios, alternative scenarios. And it helps. It helps me pull myself back out of that conversation and challenge AI. That's one way. The other way is you challenge AI's views. Right? Tell me why you think so. Ask that question in your conversation. When you ask that, it will then flip sometimes and says, okay, sorry, that was what I thought, not what I thought, and flip. So embed these techniques into your conversation. Over-reliance can be avoided when you switch out of that conversation. And I'm teaching this in my heavy wherever I go. I talk to one BA practice at least every month. This is what I do. At the end, I write articles saying this is what you do to avoid over-reliance. Imagine if it's taken out. If you lose the access to AI, what happens? You're moving departments. What you have, you have to wait 2 months to probably get access to it. What do? You can't ask for Copilot on day one, right? Absolutely. So over-reliance, you pull yourself out of it by practicing. That's the only way. Because very soon you'll see AI tools in every software that you use. So it will be appearing there on the side. Come use my features. If you want to summarize, just stay there. I want to summarize it myself. I'm reading. I'll come to you when I'm done. Did I answer your question?
So the second part is skills degradation.
Yes.
Prolonged use of AI, what the industry standards are showing is that it's a heavy reliance on AI and Copilot. So agencies like mine who do not use Copilot, people are struggling to come and participate in the conversations.
Okay.
That's where the skills degradation is happening. And I'm keen to hear your views.
Yes. What I consciously do, I'm a UX designer as well. Sorry, I'm talking too much about my skills, but this is my evolution, that process. I came through those stages. But I switch out of that document when I need to. So if I'm doing persona analysis using Researcher, at one point I switch out. Now it's time to draw. So it's time to do image generation. But the images are having bias. There's certain patterns I'm seeing. So switch out, think bias, think responsible AI, think inaccuracies, switch out. But at any point, I need to drop these tools, go use Visio, Figma, right? Because those are the tools that I used earlier. I can't lose touch. If AI is not giving me what I want, I need to switch and go. I think there's a tendency to now drop AI tool, pick another AI tool, pick another AI. But we can always go back to what we knew, Visio, PowerPoint. And so I think we should consciously switch out of the pattern. It won't lead to degradation. In fact, I was doing some coding a few years back as the solution architect. Then I stopped that project and I reopened it. I used Bolt AI to just do some vibe coding. Whatever I built in 6 months, 8 months, just built it in half an hour. What do I do? What happened to my skills? So you need to pick this, but imagine it generated a lot of code. You need to be able to spot it. Millions of lines of code you cannot, but if it's actually reporting that this is a bug, you should be able to understand it. So you should always be able to switch back to what you knew. So consciously when you're getting into that whirlpools of getting sucked into that AI conversation, switch out. That's the only way to stay within this velocity of AI.
Dushyant and I were actually also talking before about how interchangeable PM skills are. It's amazing how you get a PMBA, PMR, PM vet, lots of different PMs. Everyone's PM, they just don't know it yet, right? Raj, I just wanted to say thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.